Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Oh, well, come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday. It is July 29th and plenty to get to today, Todd Leary. How's it going, man?
It is going well. Things are good.
It's going to be another nice day outside, it looks like. Plenty to get to. Like I said, we got to talk to Archie Miller yesterday for the first time in 138 days or something like that.
So who counted that up? Who had counted that up?
Rick Bozich. It was in Rick Bozich's article. I started laughing. I'm trying to remember. 138 days. It was 138 days since his last press conference style deal that they had, and that was after beating Nebraska at the Big Ten tournament.
That's a pretty funny way of giving information and a slight dig at the same time.
I was kind of thinking that's kind of funny, yeah. But yeah, we talked to Archie yesterday, talked to several of the players, Al Durham, Joey Brunk, Rob Phinisee, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis. We'll hear from all those guys over the next couple of days. But the one thing that came out of that, Todd Leary, is, and then we heard this last year, but new offense, fast pace, up tempo,
up and down the floor. Yep.
But this year I believe it because it's not that he didn't have the horses to run that race last year. He didn't have the right horses to run that race last year, I think. Now he's got a team, and he talked about it, that is a much more cohesive team. He's also got a backup point guard in Christian Lander that will give him options, and they talked about that running Rob and Al and Christian at the same time on the floor. So we're going to see. I believe that about the offense this year. Last year, I think it was a one. That's what he wanted. Couldn't get it done last year, but this year I think we're actually going to see that.
Yeah, I mean, you everything you said, I agree with completely. The issue with that, and keep in mind, players can make dramatic changes over a 1-year period, over a summer, and they can change their games and the way they play. You know, one of the issues with that, and we saw it last year, is Archie gets attached and really he likes sticking to a starting lineup. And Joey Brunk was a part of that starting lineup the entire season last year. And Joey Brunk and fast-paced offense don't go together based on what he's played like in the past. So that if that is the case, it is one of those situations. I think throughout the majority of the minutes of a game, throughout the 40 minutes, I think Indiana's going to be looked at as an up and down the court team, but they're also going to start games out relatively slow. I think, because I think Joey Brunk will start again this year.
I think you're right. He's there not as much for offensive output as a centerfying piece. He's the centerpiece as far as mentally out there. He's the leader. But of course, like you said, it's to me, the team that I'd see that this is really going to be, like you talked about most of the time, is going to be Al Durham and Rob Phinisee and Christian Lander and Jerome Hunter and Trace Jackson Davis up and down the floor. There's 5 guys that can be on the floor at the same time and get it done. Now, of course, that's 5 guys, and you've got to have pieces to replace that to continue that. But I think that is the type of style that Archie is trying to get to.
Yeah, and I think, I think who that speaks to when they make statements like that, I think who that really talks to the most is Race Thompson, Jerome Hunter, and then, the 3 wings that came in, like all 3 of those guys. I mean, those guys are fighting for Al Durham's minutes, really, is what it comes down to. I mean, Al Durham as a senior is probably inheriting those minutes, but Archie has also shown like he's willing to play freshmen. So, there's a lot of guys that are going to be chomping at the bit to get those minutes right there. But I think Race Thompson and Jerome Hunter are the 2 guys that it really speaks to the most in saying, hey, I want to play the style of basketball that you guys help me with the most. You just got to be productive. And I got to be comfortable with putting you out on the floor, and you got to be able to play defensively as well as offensively.
And you've got a new group of guys. I was just thinking last night, gosh dang, this team is super young still. This is a young
Yeah.
team.
We talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis. Yeah, we talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis like he's been like he's a senior. Can you remember before Trayce Jackson-Davis? I mean, not really. It seems like a long time ago.
And he's the centerpiece.
And he's been there 1 year. Yeah.
And then you got all these guys coming in that are going to have an integral part. Christian Lander, we've already talked about, but Trey Galloway, Anthony Leal. Didn't talk about Jordan Geronimo at all yesterday, but it was a small time. We didn't really talk about the freshman much at all. Christian Lander got talked about some, but that's because he's probably going to be a little more of an integral part instantly just because of his position. But they've got some freshmen that we don't know what they're going to do. Freshmen are freshmen, so we don't know if they're going to be able to step in and
truly, Jordan Geronimo could end up. He could be the hidden gem in this entire thing. I mean, he could be the Calbert Cheney of this entire recruiting class coming in, and you just don't know. Like you don't know how guys are going to transition to it, and he comes in with, I think, probably the least amount of information known about him just because he's not from the state of Indiana. All three other guys that are coming in are all from the state of Indiana. And we've kind of grown up with them. And we've watched them through the whole recruiting process. He's the one outlier in that's not the case. And believe me, based on early information and watching him, I mean, the one video I saw of him and Anthony Leal working out together on Twitter, I mean, that was probably more information than I got in watching all of his highlight videos from high school, because he looked 1,000 times more. He looked way more athletic than Anthony Leal. He looked like as good, about better a shooter than Anthony Leal. That's not two things I would have said about him before watching those.
And that's not a slight videos on Anthony Leal. It's just
we didn't know. All, no.
We didn't know how good we don't know. We just don't know 100%. Much about Jordan Geronimo because he's been up there, but he kind of reminds me of OG in the fact of the unknown factor. And he's OG we know turned out to be just crazy good. But watching OG Anunoby on the floor when he was in college, I didn't see NBA first round right then. Right. But that's one that they did, and he's still
the only thing you did see was NBA first round athletic ability. And that was that is unteachable. You're kind of born with that or you're not. And that's what OG brought to the table, and he's got the right mindset and work ethic to go along with it. And these guys, what I said a minute ago, like I feel like now I need to go back and make sure it doesn't sound like I was ripping Anthony Leal, because I'm really not at all.
It didn't. No, I didn't. I knew, because I knew what you were saying. It didn't sound that way. I didn't think so. But I just wanted to.
And Anthony's got some intangibles that are not just something that's going to show up on Twitter. I mean, he's a winner. He's a leader.
Archie talked about those two as having such big guards. They're big guards now. They're wing guards, but they're guards basically and essentially. But they're big. They're 6'5". They're not skinny kids. So you got that advantage going on. And Archie talked about that, having some bigger guys, and he's got some size. So now he's got size. He's got camaraderie, cohesiveness, and the guys that he wants. Big difference, man. I mean,
what's fun to think about is with this group of guys coming in. I mean, if everything played out kind of the way it seems right now, Christian Lander after 3 seasons probably is going to have a chance at going to the NBA. That's to be my guess right now. The other guys I see is all 4-year guys. And people are going to look at this Indiana basketball team when this freshman recruiting class are seniors. And I think there'll probably be at least 3 of them left. When these guys are seniors, they're going to look at this as like we look at Iowa a lot, where you get guys like Jordan Bohannon, where you're like, it seems like he's been there forever. Because I think all of these guys are going to make a contribution early in their careers. We're going to be hearing their names a lot. They're going to be big parts of games. And so we're going to feel like they've been there forever. It's going to be hard to think of an IU team when these guys weren't here, after a couple of seasons, like we already said about Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Yeah, there was there was nothing one subject talked about most. Of course, probably, I guess that would be the difficulties of the coronavirus. But in talking to Archie, they've been managing it pretty well. He said he's very happy with the maturity of this team and how they have handled it. They've been working out in groups of 2,
Did they have they had any positive results? Have they say that?
Oh, did not. That was no, they did not. But I don't think that they have because everyone is still practicing, other than Jerome Hunter, who just got a tonsil. I think he got his tonsils taken out.
I didn't know if any of the guys. I didn't know if maybe any of the guys had tested positive back in April and May, and they've already been through it and been over it.
I don't think so. Iowa, on the other hand, Iowa basketball has shut down their voluntary workouts for 14 days as they go into quarantine. A couple of guys there, 2 of them, I believe, COVID positive. So they're tracing, they're stopping immediately, which is what you have to do. You can't do what the Florida Marlins did and play a damn game.
And go ahead and play.
And then tell the world, oh, by the way, we got some positive guys. Yeah, because look at the Marlins now. They're half their damn team has it because of that.
Is there a penalty for that?
There ought to be. I mean, there's not. There ought to be. But this is what you have to do. We're going to have cases, people, and that's why I'm talking about the Iowa thing. It's not that, oh my God, no, it's going to happen, and they're doing what they need to do. We're going to take a 14-day break. They're doing it now. They're getting it out of the way, and they're getting through it. This is what programs and teams are going to have to do. But
I think that sounds plain and simple and cut and dry on the first time that it happens. But let's say they take a 14-day break right now, and then they come back and practice for 3 days, and 2 more guys have it. Then they have to take another 14-day break, and so that could constantly, that's obviously looking at the worst case scenario, but that could constantly happen all preseason long.
Jimmy looks like he's ready for some sound there, I hope, drinking his coffee. Archie Miller, we as we said, we talked to Archie yesterday in a Zoom conference late yesterday. He walked to several of the players as well, Jimmy. What do we got there, Jimmy Johns? Here's our Coach Archie Miller in the part of our meeting yesterday with him.
Different situations, everybody else, but I will say I'm really, really excited about the group we have, though. Their ability to sort of absorb this from March, 14 weeks they were away, their ability to sort of grasp our plan, why we're coming back, this is what we want to accomplish when we're back, and to kind of watch their maturity level of this group. It's definitely by far and away the most together, best leadership that we've had. And also just the maturity of our new guys coming in have really just fallen in line and really not missed a beat. So we've been fortunate that we've learned a lot. And I guess that would be the thing we're taking. We continue to keep learning and keep planning and keep learning. But in some cases, the inevitable happens when you're not ready.
There was Coach Archie Miller talking about how they've handled it. Well, I mean, I guess what else you going to say? Oh, we've been terrible at it. But that's important because getting through this, being able to do what you need to do. And he talked about they're behind, but everybody's behind. He said, this is the same for everybody. So he says right now we're probably, by the time that August rolls around, they'll be where they should have been in midsummer. So they're behind, but everybody's a little behind. He'd like to be further. Of course, would like to have more time, but it is what it is. But he's happy with what they're doing. They've been working in groups, and eventually that will probably go away, or it has to go away. But this is part of the COVID protocol and what you have to continue to do. So, yeah, there's only so much you can do in groups. I mean, you can work on things limited, but you can't have a complete team workout.
The group here's the deal with what they're doing right now. The small group settings that they're working in, that is probably real close. Maybe it's a little bit smaller groups than what they would have done in a normal summer. The difference is at the end of all that, you might have guys come in and work for an hour and a half, and it's a small group of guards or the big guys or whatever it might be. But then later in the day, everybody gets together and they play 5-on-5. That's the part of it that's not taking place right now. And so, yeah, there's a lot of that they are going to miss out on. But I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I swear I feel I hear a little bit more emphasis in Archie's voice in excitement for this team. And
he definitely said it.
I don't think you can understate it in how important it is for the togetherness of a team when now you have, I mean, there's one guy in this locker room that Archie Miller didn't go visit and recruit to come to this team, and that's Al Durham. And Al Durham's a great, well, and Joey Brunk. But, I mean, he did bring Joey Brunk in to the program. But Al Durham's a guy who easily is a great teammate and going to fit in. He's not going to, debunk what you're trying to accomplish as a coach. So right now, I hate to say it, I'm going to throw his name out there just because, but without Justin Smith, this is a full locker room full of people that Archie Miller, I think, will really enjoy coaching. And I hate to single Justin out like that, but it's my honest feeling of it. And I hope Justin has a terrific career at Arkansas, as long as they don't play Indiana. But I think this locker room is as good as it could be right now for Archie Miller.
I think you're exactly right. He alluded to that. We'll talk about that a lot more later on. But coming up next, Dusty May, head coach at Florida Atlantic now, current former IU manager, of course, but he's a head man down at Florida Atlantic. He's going to join us next. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Negative, nepotist. Everybody waiting for the fall of man. Everybody praying for the end of times. Everybody hoping they could be the one. I was born to run. I was born for this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat here on this Wednesday. Reach the hump day. Joined now by Dusty May, the head coach at Florida Atlantic, former IU manager. Dusty, Coach May, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Of course, Todd Leary here as well. Todd, you're muted. Todd's muted there. We have to get him unmuted himself.
Sorry, Dusty's got me nervous. Dusty makes me nervous, man. You know that.
I appreciate you guys having me on, though.
Thank you so much. Normally I would say, hey, you're lucky you're down in Florida, but right now I don't know if that's the place to be, but it's kind of the epicenter of everything. You've got the NBA bubble going on down there, but of course it's been one of the hot spots, but just a lot of excitement in the state of Florida lately.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and the WNBA's over at Bradenton by Tampa, and the NBA's in Orlando. And then at least here, though, we're able to go outside, and I don't do much. I don't go out to eat a lot, so my lifestyle hasn't changed. Our guys are here working and training, and we're able to get on the floor a little bit with them. So there's been a little bit of normalcy the last few weeks, which we're very thankful for.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Archie Miller last night for the first time in quite a while, and he was very excited about his team. But more importantly, they talked about how they've been able to get through this, and they thought all the different protocols that there's being put in place and using less guys, and the difficulties of recruiting. So of course, you have to face those same difficulties and practicing, trying to get ready for a season, half a team at a time. How have you guys managed to get through all that?
We've really just focused on the individual part of it, and we're not allowed to make contact with each other. So we had to be creative with us staff, with the pads and whatnot, and our assistant coaches have taken a beating. But it's been fun, and we've had to be creative. But we feel like we're getting better. We're getting some things done, and hopefully we can play a season this year.
Do you think that given everything that's going on, obviously no one's going to root for this pandemic situation, but given what's going on in the quarantine, do you think teams are going to have a little bit better? I mean, are you seeing your team having a better camaraderie and ability to, kind of get along? I know there's certain teams, a lot of times as soon as practice is over, everybody kind of fingers out and goes their own direction, but that's really kind of not possible right now, is it?
Yeah, and even with our facilities, every time you enter the building, you have to get a wristband, temperature checks, questionnaire, all that. So it's difficult where our guys only have set number of hours they can be in the gym, and then they go back to their rooms. And we've tried to encourage them to keep their circles tight, not to be out, endangering basically their teammates. So they've had to be creative, but I think they're spending a lot of time in their small groups, but the thing it's done, it's got everyone out of their routines, and that's the biggest, I think, danger to all this, that so many people are just out of whack, where so many of us, especially in athletics, are products of our routine and what we do on a daily basis. So we're just trying to get our guys back into where they're accustomed to working out, taking care of their bodies, doing their schoolwork, and just working towards something on a daily basis, especially when there's no end in sight. We're familiar with hurricane season, and when the hurricane passes, if you're lucky enough and it misses you, things go back to normal. Where now there's no end in the storm. It might be a week, it might be 6 months, it might be 2 years. So that's been the hardest part.
Do you guys have a different housing situation than what you would have had were it not for the pandemic? Is everybody living in the same area?
Everyone has their own bedroom, and because of the limited numbers, we don't have our full team here. Actually, our Latvian center played with his national team this past weekend in a Baltic Cup, and there was several hundred fans in the stands. It's crazy to look all over the world and see a lot of countries back to normal and going about daily activities, and then we're still kind of stuck in we're in the holding pattern that we're in. But our guys have their own room, they have their own space. So not much has changed with our guys. They've had a pretty comfortable living situation even before COVID.
So there's so many challenges that come up with this, and then hopefully we can look forward to having the fun part, because I've gone through up and down as far as what I think is going to happen. I'm feeling more and more confident now that we are going to have a basketball season, and it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be different. but I think it's going to be a good college basketball season with all this. And I think it's going to be very important because I don't know if there's anything that the country needs more right now than to draw your mind away from this as we try to get through it. But more, and for these kids, because Todd and I both have high school students that are about to leave college, but the loss that I talked about, the biggest thing is when watching the NCAA tournament, there's always these magical moments, these magical runs. We didn't get to have that, which means kids didn't get to have that. Teams didn't get to have that. And I certainly would hate to see that lost again for a second year.
No question. And you really feel bad for the seniors. And so much is made about, I guess you can get on Twitter and you see all the media talking about how this is all about money, all about money. Well, the majority of schools don't make a lot of money on college athletics. It's kids wanting to play the game they love. So that's the tough part of it. But I just think that we all have to be adaptable, whether we're playing with no fans, whether we're playing with fans, whether we play regionally. I do agree with you that we're going to play in some form. It's just what that may look like. We have no idea. Hopefully the leaders, the powers that be, can make it happen and figure out creative ways to keep everyone safe while also allowing guys to get back to doing what they love to do in the normalcy. Because the mental health part of it, when you take everything away, that's another concern with our guys. Just making sure they're in the right frame of mind and right mindset, and like I said, working towards something. So yeah, I'm anxious to see what it looks like. But yeah, hopefully sooner than later we can get back to normal lifestyle.
We spend a lot of time talking about recruiting and, the state of Indiana recruits and who Indiana University is recruiting. And as someone who's, from the state of Indiana and spent a lot of time at the university and has ties here, as a head coach outside of the state, do you try to recruit India? I mean, we talk about it a lot, like there's a lot of talent in the state of Indiana, but as a coach who is outside the state, do you try to recruit the state of Indiana if at all possible?
Look, Todd, when I was at UAB, we had a couple Indiana guys. Robert Baden came down, and then Armand Bassett and signed, and it ended up at Ohio U. So we felt like it was close enough, and with Coach Davis's name and reputation, we could pull some kids. When I went to Louisiana Tech, it was about a 12.5-hour drive. It was tough to get there, a couple connection flights. So I didn't really ever recruit Indiana when I was at La Tech. And then when I came down here, then it was the staff. We decided that the Midwest is a place. There's direct flights. A lot of people have family in Florida. Most Midwestern kids love Florida. I know growing up, if anyone in the state of Florida would offer me a scholarship, I would have been there yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, we made a conscious effort. We signed a really good player out of Gary, John L. Davis. I think he was second or third in Mr. Basketball voting. Had a really good season. Was one of the top scorers in the state of Indiana. Played on a really good AU team. And then we signed another kid that played for Bosco, Dave Maravella's program up in Crown Point. He's originally from New York, but he played preps in Indiana. So without a doubt, we're recruiting the state. We love what those guys bring to the table as far as the coaching and the pedigree and all that. So without a doubt, yes, we're going to recruit the state of Indiana now that we're in a place where we feel like we can do it efficiently.
And recruiting is something, it reminds me, if I had to make an analogy, it reminds me of NASCAR pit stops, the craziness, because you're going in 1,000 different directions. You got to find kids that are all over the country. And now you've got to use different resources to see them play, to watch them play, to talk to them, communicate. It's a choreographed dance at 100 miles an hour. And how has that been as far, because establishing relationships is the biggest part of recruiting between a coach and a player, obviously. How has that been with the loss of that personal touch?
It's been hard. It's been very difficult, but I listen to a lot of podcasts and the NBA early deadlines coming up soon. And these guys are trying to figure out if they're going to stay in the draft. And the NBA, their approach is that the organizations with a great scouting department that have done their legwork for the last several years, they're gonna have a distinct advantage because they have the relationships, they've done the homework, the legwork on the players, and they can get the actual play from film, who they like, but they've done most of their work leading up to this. So same thing here, I have a great staff, and they've done a lot of legwork and have great relationships. So recruiting's actually gone well during COVID. Obviously the longer it goes and the longer we can't go, the time between us going out and seeing them in person and seeing what they've been doing, that makes it more difficult. But It's possible. Like I said, everything that we have to be adaptable. We have to figure out the best way. And the hardest thing for the kids is the patience, because they all want it to happen the way it normally happens. And it's just not gonna proceed like that, because I know we're going to be patient and not take anyone that we're not 100% about just because of the circumstances.
Well, man, it has been certainly a trying year, and I know that it's going to be an exciting one. But Todd, as we look forward to this upcoming season, what are you looking forward to seeing from these teams like this?
Well, I mean, the interesting part when you look at schools the size of like a Florida Atlantic, for example, I think those schools are probably and Dusty, I know you well enough to know, I'm not ripping on you based on the size of the school, but when you look at schools that size, I mean, I think they're going to benefit, if there's a possibility of saying that, or they're going to be hurt less by this pandemic than I think a school like, Kentucky or somewhere like that, because Kentucky's going to offer the top 25 and they're going to get who they're going to get. But in your case, I think a lot of kids are going to pick a school. We just saw Luke Brown yesterday from the state of Indiana pick Stetson. I think a lot of people are going to pick schools based on the relationship with the coach. And this is not just to kiss your butt, Dusty, but you're one of those people that when you get on a Zoom call with someone, they're going to be impressed and they're going to, want to know more. They're going to want to learn more and more about the school. So I really think the schools that have coaches, Jim, you and I talked about this yesterday, when there's coaches that are 70 years old, it's harder for them to adapt to the way these kids communicate today. Even Coach Buckley yesterday talked about it's harder for the older coaches talking to younger kids. Dusty's a young man, so he's gonna adapt to that better than the average kid. So I see schools like Florida Atlantic that have young coaches, really probably benefiting more or being hurt less by this situation.
Well, we got someone that knows best, Coach May. How do you think that?
I mean, I know, Dusty, you can't just sit there and say, "Yeah, well, I've got a huge advantage over guys," but I mean, you are someone who's probably going to benefit from being on a Zoom call, better than Dick Vitale's age guy who's still coaching somewhere.
I don't disagree, Todd, and we've said it for years that recruiting is a young man's game, and you see staffs getting younger, and I intentionally hired a young staff because they can relate better to the players. They're more active and involved in their life, and obviously I'm not stereotyping older coaches, but that's usually the case. But we've tried to be creative, but like I said, I think one of the biggest benefits is when we are able to get back on the road, being in proximity to players, because let's say we can start going out again in October. Well, we're going to have our team practicing every day, and we're going to be busy with our own things. And now we've got to go out and recruit as well. And fortunately for us, there's great players in a close proximity to us. We can go an hour in any direction and probably field a competitive roster if we did a good job with those relationships. And Indiana's the same way. There's so many players in the state, in the immediate area, that I think we're going to be able to coach our team and recruit, which is going to be the toughest balance. Because if you're in an area where there aren't players, you're going to have to travel, which means you're going to have to be away from your team, and now you're relying on just your assistants or just your relationships. So, whoever balances all this the best is going to come out in great shape in the next couple of years, because recruiting, it's not like we sign freshmen and they're immediately good most of the time. There's a developmental process. So I think if we really win this next portion, it'll pay dividends in 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, Coach May, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. We always enjoy talking to you. Look forward to it. How is things looking for your team? How are you feeling about your team in this upcoming season?
Really good. This is year 3, and we have 3 starters that graduated and could have grad transferred and moved on, and they decided to stay and try to do something special together. So
that's huge.
We have some proven production back. We finally got old, and then we've added a young group of freshmen we feel like is our best class yet that we'll be able to contribute and help out. So we have a good balance of old and new, and that was the goal from the beginning, to build a program. Let's get old, and let's have some great character and good talent behind those guys, so when they're out of here, then we just move some new guys in. So this should be by far our best seasons, our most talented roster. So if they can overcome our coaching, we should have a good season.
Well, Coach, that sounds like a great recipe. We're looking forward to it. We're rooting for you, and we'll be pulling for you. We'll definitely be FAU fans outside of the Big Ten, and wish you the best. Have a great luck this season. I hope everything goes well, healthy. Everyone stays healthy, and it's a fun, successful season for you.
I appreciate being on. I just hated that Todd put so much more pressure on me with the recruiting piece.
No question about it. Thanks, Dusty. Appreciate it.
Coach Dusty May, Florida Atlantic, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We got a lot more coming up. We'll be doing it from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday. It is the midpoint of the week, the 29th of July. Just spoke with Dusty May, head coach of Florida Atlantic, former IU manager, another IU manager that has gone on to great things. Tomorrow, Chris Denari will be talking to him from the Pacers, as they did not have a good end to their call it exhibition run or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, the Pacers have gone from being the team that's kind of a very low drama, not a lot of things talked about outside of their play, to now all of a sudden they're kind of the new Knicks of the league. I mean, they got the crazy stuff going on all over the place.
At least they're not the Reds.
Yeah, good point.
Oh my God. anybody that's a Reds fan out there has got to be pulling their hair out this year. Finally, the Reds are thought to be in line to be one of the challengers, and what do? They've started the season at 1-4. And the crazy thing is, I saw some stupid stats. Through the first 4 games, I think they may have become the first team in Major League Baseball history to have pitchers to strike out 12 pitchers in each of the first 4 games. Joey Votto set a record for maybe, I can't remember if it was multiple hits in the first 4 games, first time since '88, and yet they go 1-4 in these games. How is that possible?
They're the Reds. They make it possible.
Golly, it's just mind-boggling. Last Chance U is out on Netflix. Have you ever seen that? Last Chance U. Oh my God, dude, that's a pretty good
show
series
to watch.
It's this is the 4th season, I think.
I've never seen any of them. That'd be a good little binge for me.
Oh, dude, you don't know. That's a hell of a binge. You start at the beginning. It is, well, the first 2 seasons are down in Mississippi at a JUCO school down there. These are the cast-off kids.
Right.
That for whatever reason, most of the time it was a disciplinary thing.
Gotten on the wrong path at some point.
They got all these bad kids, and man, it is raw. They don't. If they edit stuff, I'd like to see what the hell they edit out.
You want to see the unedited version? Yeah.
Wow, because it is raw. And then they changed schools, and then that second school they went to, that coach who was he's kind of weird, but he ended up getting fired because of something he said. And so now I don't know who this next guy is. I haven't seen anything on it, so I'm looking forward to watching that. But I've watched them all the way through. It's been there was a couple of IU guys on there, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Was it Cammy and Patrick was one, and then there was another one. Well, Morgan Ellison. Did Morgan Ellison?
It's football team. It's football team.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
And I mean, and you can imagine. I mean, everything's raw athletics wise, but football seems to come across a little more raw than most, and they do not don't disappoint. I guess in that.
Well,
regard.
I mean, I think there's a part of it that even to be, a big time high school player, but I mean, then you go on to college and then the NFL guys. I mean, you've got to have half a screw loose to be an NFL. Linebacker or lineman or so. I mean, you got to be half nuts.
Well, if you don't have one loose, you certainly will have.
You're gonna, yeah.
Hey, I can't believe. Let me get this. Jimmie Johnson finally gets to make his long-awaited IndyCar test on the road course at Indianapolis. He's retiring from NASCAR at the end of the season. The 7-time champion. He said he's always been dreamed of being an IndyCar driver, and he's probably going to end up driving some road courses and possibly the Indianapolis 500. That'll be interesting to see that. And then the biggest news, I guess, that I haven't been able to get to yet. How about Tyra Buss going to Evansville as an assistant coach to start her coaching career? She talked about that. I'm like, oh, man, I cannot wait to get her on here so you can tell her how crazy you think she is for leaving that cushy TV job to go coach. Recruit.
She lost her mind. She's lost her mind. But we had her on, and she, one of the last times she was on our show, I know you had asked her, and she wanted to get back into coaching. The bug had her. She wanted to be a part of it, of basketball, and what a great opportunity for her. Congratulations to her. That's terrific.
Well, it's like she's got that competitive drive is just still fresh, too raw for her.
When IU had the offer, or the assistant job that opened up, when the one lady went down to Alabama, I really kind of thought Tyra might fit into that.
You know what? I think it's because she has not coached anywhere yet.
Yeah.
And it may have, and sometimes you do get your first job there, but it's usually is maybe like a GA, but not always. So I think that I bet you they thought, go out and get you a job first.
Yep.
Then come here, and I think I don't
disagree with. I don't disagree with that at all. That's kind of the way. That's not a women's basketball thing. That's kind of the way it happens in general. And Dusty May is a great example of that whole situation. I mean, he went out. He was a video coordinator. He was a grad assistant. He did all the little dirty work. And then he got, he was lucky enough to get hooked up with Mike White down at Louisiana Tech. And then Mike White got a bigger job at the University of Florida. And then, it snowballs pretty quickly, but until the snowball grows a little bit, it's pretty grinding work. It's grueling.
Well, especially look at Indiana women's basketball. That's becoming a program. And by that, what I mean is when I say quote a program, somebody to be they're going to be challenging people. They did it last year already. Coach Moore has done a tremendous job building that program, and she has built it the right way. And
Jim, this is I think this is the signs of a team or a program that's really getting to another level. Is I think in past years, and I'm not saying 2 years ago, I'm saying like 20 years ago, Tyra Bruss would have been a no-brainer to go on to that staff and be a part of that team. But right now, this team,
they would have needed her.
Nothing against Tyra Bruss, but right now they can kind of nitpick. They can take the best of and go pluck somebody out of Notre Dame or wherever they want to, because they're on that rise. And that doesn't mean Tyra won't be there. I think there's a point when, that may happen, but what a great opportunity for her to get down there. I mean, that's Evansville. That's a fantastic first job to have.
Oh, absolutely. It would appear that it was given to her. Maybe there would have been pressure if she comes here first, but all coaches, you go out and do it. And so there's no pressure and you earn it. And like you said, a great example in Dusty May, but all these guys, you go out and you earn it. Look where Cabra Cheney is. I mean, but that's not where he started. And guys, and he didn't start as a coach at IU. Well, he was like the director of player development. So there's a learning process, man. And Indiana women's basketball has now become this is not a teaching job anymore. You have to have on the job training before you get here, kind of a deal. And which is that, like you just said, that's the sign of a growing program, which is awesome. But congratulations to Tyra. Looking forward to getting her on as soon as possible. You have to text her. I texted her yesterday and have to get her on before she gets too busy out recruiting, because man, once you become a coach, now you're on the road. Well, not on the road. Won't be on the road at least.
Yeah, but she'll be down there working with the players they've got on campus, and they'll be hitting the ground running. So
absolutely, everybody's
all coaches are chomping at the bit right now. I mean, they've been quote quarantined with their their programs have been quarantined for a couple months now, so they're ready to get rolling. But what I was going to say about Dusty May, one of the fun parts about having him on our show is no coach being in his position is going to say Florida Atlantic is a stepping stone job for him. It's a great opportunity, a fantastic opportunity. And I firmly believe he'll do great there. But one of the fun parts of having him on is one of these days we're going to be talking about Dusty May at a big time university, at a Power 5 school as a head coach. And to that way we'll be able to look back and think about having him on when he was at Florida Atlantic. But he would never say, you could never say that as a coach. No coach could.
There's a lot of IU guys.
He'll be a big time coach at some point.
Oh, I agree. And there's a lot of other guys that I think the same of that these names, Dane Fife, of course, and Michael Lewis, that are still assistant coaches, but those guys are going to be big time head coaches. Dane Fife has really put his time in. After being a head coach, he had experiences at Fort Wayne, but he's put his time in under up at Michigan State under Coach Izzo.
Dave Fife has to be on a very short list of names for the next big head coaching job. And you know what? When you look at it, Tom Izzo doesn't look that old. He kind of looks the same way he did 20 years ago. I mean, he doesn't look dramatically older, but that could definitely. Dane's from the state of Michigan. It would not shock me at all if he stays there and takes over Michigan State.
I would not be at either, as long as – well, they would have to know. I think that he would have to have a conversation. There would have to be a plan. Do you have a plan? Are you going to be out 5 years? I mean, I'll wait 5 more years because he's been there. This would be his like a 10th season, I think, a decade. Yeah. That is an unbelievable long time for an assistant coach. So, and then when a head coach, when you have that, hell, you have basically it's more than just an assistant.
You've got another coach on your right.
You've got another head coach right there, and it's like, so you don't have to go anywhere. It makes it a lot easier on you. I mean, Bob Knight did not do a lot of hands-on recruiting his last 10 years, especially. He didn't have to, but the assistants do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, you look at so Izzo right now is 65 years old. Okay, I mean, we've seen coaches coach well into their 70s. So, I mean, if he's got another 10 years at Michigan State, then I don't think Dane Fife can sit around. I don't think he'll sit around and be there that long. But if he's got 4 more years there, if he retires by the time he's 70, I think that'll be a situation Dane would hang around for that. But Dane has to be, my point in all of this was Dane has to be on a super short list of the next head coaches to get a decent job. I don't think Dane, some like the route Dusty May's taking and going to Florida Atlantic, and then we think it'll be a stepping stone job for him and he'll go to a bigger place. I don't think that'll be the case for Dane. I think Dane will go from, like a Michigan State to a bigger school, like a Butler size school or something like that.
Yeah, I think that I expect Dane to be the next coach at Michigan State, to be honest with you. I just do.
Yeah, but I mean, with Izzo only being 65 years old, does he coach till he's 75?
He could. I mean, Krzyzewski isn't he already 70, 72?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure. And there's no sign. I mean, he'll retire in the next 5 years, but there's no sign of him retiring this year or next year.
Now, see, that's another guy. They don't have to do jack. They can just lean back and say, and just send the offers out. They don't have to do jack when it comes to recruiting because it just says Duke. And that's all you got to do. So his job, and that's the hardest part to me of one of the hardest parts of college basketball for those coaches is the recruiting aspect. Well, that's licked for Mike Krzyzewski and Duke. When you don't have that issue, man, that sure does make life a lot easier.
Think about this. This is pretty crazy, but think about it. And this is just my opinion, but I think it was harder to be the coach that follows Coach Knight. And I think Coach Krzyzewski has been more successful than Coach Knight. I mean, I think that's proven itself. And I think it still was harder to be the next coach because of the fan base in the state of Indiana and how knowledgeable fans are in the state of Indiana. I think it still will go down as a harder job to replace Coach Knight than the guy who comes in and replaces Krzyzewski.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
Yes, because the way he did it, because nobody's going to do it that way next. And it's going to be a change no matter what. And people, when you have massive change, it affects people. So it would
what's Duke do? I mean, stay on the subject. What's Duke do next? Do they go hire the best coach across the country?
No.
Or do they hire one of the guys that they've been grooming for
Jeff
10 years?
Jeff Capel, who I thought would not leave, kind of like Dane Fife, but I think he's at Pitt now. But they're him. I mean, you go get – he's still a Duke guy. They're going to bring a Duke guy back. I promise you. It will not be a non-Duke guy. I would be more than utterly shocked. Jimmy, do you have those any of the players we talked about? Let's bust that out before I forget.
Yeah, I'm going to play this clip on Al talking about the three-guard lineup next season.
Al talking about the three-guard lineup next season. Talked about a different offense to expect for IU basketball, and I think it's what you're going to see. Let's hear it.
I feel like it's, been a good adjustment. I feel like it's, everyone gets a shot at everything. I feel like it's more interchangeable, three guards around the perimeter. So, I mean, you could be at either position, whether that be in the corner or at the top. So, I mean, it's been a good workout. Good workouts. We've all learned, what they've tried to implement into the offense. And we just, try to learn more and more from them each day and how they want us to work out and how they want us, to play in the positions that they put us in.
That's Al Durham. It sounded like Rob Finney, but that was Al Durham, I guess, talking about the new offense next season. And that, in part, I don't want to lay it all on him. Christian Lander is very integral because of the position he plays, point guard. And I asked Rob about that. We'll hear that tomorrow. But I asked Rob Finney, he's been the only guy since he's been here. And it seemed like it was just yesterday he was a freshman, but he's not. He's one of the leaders now. He's an upperclassman. But he hasn't had that guy behind him, the other point guard that can help shoulder that load. And now he does. And they're going to be on the floor at the same time. I think this is definitely has the makings of an exciting offense for Archie Miller. You're muted, Todd. That's something I did yesterday.
Darn it, I'm sorry.
I did a Zoom call yesterday.
I mean, I don't think there's any question the lineups are going to be extremely interesting. I mean, there's going to be some lineups. It was funny to hear Al talk about three-guard lineup because I think there'll be situations, depending on who you're going to call a guard. I mean, you calling Jordan Geronimo a guard? Because I think there'll be some four-guard lineups on there.
Yeah, he's wouldn't really call him a guard, but yeah, he's a hybrid. I mean, this game is really becoming a hybrid.
Are Leal and Galloway guards?
I don't know. I don't even know anymore. I really don't.
Agree.
I'm like going.
We got to give Tom Crean credit for the positionless statement that he made, but when you look at all the guys coming in, I think they're all guards. I mean, there are guys you would never say that Race Thompson is a guard. Okay, I mean he's a power forward.
Exactly.
You would probably not say Jerome Hunter's a guard, although you could say if he has good shooting games, you could say he's a shooting guard. He's just a tall one. But then beyond that, I mean Joey Brunk obviously is not a guard. Trace Jackson Davis is not a guard. Every other guy on that team's a guard.
It reminds me when I watch highlights from '94, and I look, I'm like I was telling you not too long ago, I was watching. I think it was the Purdue game. I looked down, I'm like, I started counting. I'm like, what are you kidding me? There's Graham, there's Leary, and I just start pointing out. I'm like, going, hell, they don't have anybody on that floor over 6'7" right now.
Would you have considered Calbert Chaney a guard?
No, I would, just because of the position he played at Indiana. But is he any different? Could he have?
What is he? A small forward?
That's what I would have called him if you want to put a position on him now. Just because of where he played.
Because then you've got guys, Jordan Geronimo, Anthony Leal, Trey Galloway. All three of those guys could play small forward / big shooting guard / point guard. They could play whatever guard, 2 guard, whatever card you want to call it. It's just, I think the small forward position has that's the one hybrid that there is. I mean, what position would you call Kevin Garnett? What position would you call Kevin Durant?
That's a whole different deal.
What are those?
We gotta take a quick break, man. It's for those of you on the radio side, that's going to be the end of the road for you. For the rest of you, just hang on. We'll have more. But we appreciate Dusty May from Florida Atlantic joining us more than anything, as always. We'll be back tomorrow to talk to Chris Denari from the Pacers. So make sure you join us then. If you're listening on the podcast, just stay on. We got plenty more. But we appreciate everybody. For Todd, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio. Hey guys, welcome back. A little extra for you. We're done with the radio side of things, but man, there was just so much. I was just talking. We were talking in the break. It's crazy. Tom was like, "Well, sorry, I went on." No, we've got so much to talk about finally, but it's mainly because we had a media day with IU basketball yesterday. That gives us so much to talk about in and of itself that everything else gets pushed to the side, but there's actually stuff to talk about. I mentioned Jimmy Johnson in Indianapolis and Iowa basketball pausing and Tyra Buss, and there's just lots of stuff to actually talk about, which is awesome feeling to have to run out of time. But man, and we'll talk more about the IU tomorrow because we've got more to hear from those guys. But Archie is truly, I believe. Let's be honest. Like everybody else, Archie says a lot of things that I think he thinks the fans want to hear. But I truly believe he is excited about this team. I believe that he knows he has something good there. And he's kind of past those choppy waters that he's had to navigate for the last 3 years.
Jim, we've heard coaches all over, for a long, long time. This is nothing new, but when you come into a new situation, especially a blue blood program, especially a big time program, it would be the same thing at Purdue. It'd be the same thing at wherever. When you come in as a new coach, the most difficult thing there has to be is getting guys you did not recruit to buy into your system. I guess you can compare it to being a step parent in some ways, but just unbelievable how difficult that is. And I'm not trying to stir the pot or make anything bigger than it was, but I'm going to tell you, Archie Miller's voice, he had different inflections in his voice. Like he was talking excited about what was going on. And I have said this for a long time, that when you have a team that's fun to coach, things are just different. Your job is different. You view things differently. And Archie's an East Coast guy, so he kind of can have that negative tone from time to time, but he didn't have it yesterday, and it certainly sounded different than he's sounded in past years.
That's a great point, and I agree 1,000%. It seemed like before he was always calculated and searching for the positive things to try to find to say, and it just flowed. It was just like that. It just flowed out yesterday. But
these are his kids. I mean, and Al Durham seamlessly fits into that. Al Durham is a great teammate.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of guys that you can talk about, and like I'll say it straight out, like Calbert Chaney was a great teammate. I mean, just not only a great player, but a great teammate. Greg Graham, great player, not a great teammate. Greg Graham was pretty selfish, and I've said this to him straight. We used to make fun of him straight to his face, like we didn't. That's the kind of relationship we all had with each other. Like everyone knew Pat Graham, very selfish player. Now, it doesn't just being selfish doesn't mean you're not a great teammate. But when you know that guys are sometimes thinking about themselves before the team, that's when things can creep in and things can get bad. I've said this to you for years. That's why Jamal Meeks was such an integral part of our team, and he didn't have to play a minute on the floor for that to be the case, because he would call a guy out. I could specifically remember on the bus one time, Greg Graham not being happy because he didn't play well and we won a big game. And Jamal Meeks pulls no punches. He called him out right on the bus and was like, Greg, you need to get over it. He didn't use this exact language, but he's like, Greg, you need to get over yourself and be excited, dude. Like that's part of being on a good team.
He was the enforcer.
He was. You did not want to make Jamal mad. I can assure you of that.
I have just in the conversations we've had about him with you, I laugh because I'm like, golly, I can see this dude. I can see him on the practice floor, walking around at 6'1", whatever he is. He's still the enforcer. One of the smallest guys on the floor, and I can see him being vocal but meaning it, and that's the difference. Anybody can say it, but you got to mean it. You got to back it up, and I can see him doing that.
When you have the closed door meetings, when there's no coaches in there and it's players kind of having a come to Jesus meeting, Jamal was always the first guy talking when it came to that point. And there are a lot of parts of Jamal that that were behind the scenes that people didn't see. And this is not a pump up Jamal Meeks show. I'm just saying, like, you need that guy on your team. I honestly believe Al Durham could be that guy for this team. Now, I've not been in a locker room with him, so it's kind of difficult for me to say he's outspoken and vocal like that. But Calbert Chaney was a great, great, great teammate. Very quiet, very, very seldom ever talked. So I mean, he wasn't that outspoken vocal leader. But when the guy wins every sprint drill that you do, and when he's the first one to do complete every task that they ask you to do, I mean, that's a great teammate. That's a guy that you want to be like.
Tim sent a text in that says Jordan Geronimo is your sleeper. He will break out in junior year and not return as a senior and enter the NBA draft. I think if you can get a good kid for 3 years now, but that got me thinking yesterday. Trayce Jackson-Davis, all right, a lot of people had thought that he was going to be a 2-year guy. With this COVID, I'm like, you know what? There's a possibility you get Trayce Jackson-Davis for 3 seasons. And there's no guarantees, of course, but that would be the most phenomenal thing for Archie Miller, because one of the things Dusty May said, we finally got old. He talked about they got old. Indiana is not old. Indiana is still a young team. I mentioned this earlier. You've got all these freshmen coming in now. You've got all those guys that were freshmen last year. You've got very few upperclassmen. You got Joey Brunk, you got Rob Finney, and Al Durham. Race is kind of a tweener in there. I think he would be. Because this is his 4th year here, but he's had his
experience level,
so
experience-wise on the floor. He's still he's very young.
So there is still a young team. They got to get old. Man, having Trayce Jackson-Davis for a 3rd season, because I think if they get Trey Kaufman, and I think that they will, and that's just something else. He got an offer from UNC. But if they get Trey Kaufman, I see him as a 3-year guy because he's so smart. I think he's serious about his studies. Trace Jackson's a smart guy. I can see them staying 3 years because that's not too long. 4 years is a big commitment, but that 3 years, I think it's manageable, man. And that's what Archie Miller needs. He needs 3-year guys that are superstars.
Sure. I mean, Jordan Geronimo, wasn't Victor Oladipo a 3-year guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're striving for. I mean, that's a great problem to have if we get to that point. And Tim's point of Jordan Geronimo could be that sleeper. He very easily could be. There's no doubt about it. I'll tell you another thing. Trey Galloway could be too. Anthony Leal could be too. We already think Christian Lander for sure is not going to finish 4 years at IU because he's going to go to the NBA. So I think all of those things are possible, and they are. But the fact that we can say that about Jordan Geronimo before we've ever seen him shoot a basket in an Indiana uniform, it's kind of a fun position to be in.
I swear. And the funny thing is, the name you said, Calbert Cheaney, is he a Calbert Cheaney? Nobody can predict that because nobody knew Calbert Cheaney was a Calbert Cheaney when he got at Indiana, but he became that. But this guy's got that same physical makeup. Their size is very similar. He's got the very, very long arms with this super big wingspan, a 7-foot wingspan. That's coveted by them. You talk about defense. You can't see or shoot when you got arms, an octopus in front of you, and a daggone six guy with a 7-foot wingspan. That's disruptive. Just in and of itself.
It was another one of the characteristics of OG Anunoby that we talked about. I mean, how does he get to the NBA? He doesn't get there if he's got a 6'2" wingspan.
Nope.
Because it doesn't happen.
Because he wasn't scoring 18 points a game, and he didn't get there because he was scoring 18 points a game, and that's not what they were expecting out of him.
Yeah, no question about it. And OG is. We've talked about him a couple times today. I mean, he's just one of those guys. He's freak athlete-ish. Like he can do some things that you can't teach, or I mean, he's a freak athlete.
Oh man, it has been a fun day. We could go on. That's when it's fun, when you can keep on going. But we'll be back tomorrow to do it again. But we'll hear more from the players. We'll hear more from Archie Miller, Trace Jackson Davis, Al Durham, Rob Finney, Joey Brunk, and who am I missing? Race Thompson were the players we got to speak to. So we'll hear from all of those guys as we continue out through the week. But looking forward to that. Tomorrow, Chris Denari will talk about the Pacers, see if they can get back on the winning side of things. They didn't look too good yesterday, Todd Leary. I didn't watch that whole game. Did you watch it?
Not a single play.
I did not see it,
but I won't say that to Chris.
I did see one thing, though. I did see the highlight of Carson Edwards going down and putting one down in James Harden's face. Twitter. Oh, man, that's getting all kinds of love. I mean, and the funny thing is he just kind of turned out left, and Harden was kind of like with his arms like, hey, man, why y'all leave me like this?
Yeah, well, there's been plenty of bloopers of James Harden on defense. But I mean, look, when you can score, Carson Edwards is an elite scorer. When you can score like that, I've been saying it for a long time. I think that he will have a place in the league for a long time.
Hey, he's certainly carving a niche there, and we'll see. We'll follow up on that. But thanks again to everybody. We appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow to do it again. Make sure you wear your mask if you want to have sports and have fun. Do something, say something nice to somebody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.